This week's Parsha is Parsha Vayeira. We're continuing on in Sefer Bereshis. Chazal call Sefer Bereshis Sefer HaYashar. Why is Sefer Bereshis known as Sefer HaYashar? It's because it's the book of the upright. Who are the upright? Our avos. One of the most important aspects of Sefer Bereshis is to study the behavior of our avos, because they perfected midos, they perfected character that actually, through their perfection of these specific attributes, it became part and parcel of the spiritual DNA of every single Jew. To the point where the Talmud says that in the nature of every Jew is to be Rachmanim Baishanim Gomle Chasodim, that every Jew has in them the midah of Rachamim, compassion, Baishanim, that there's embarrassment. Part of being a Jew is that you're not that brazen, you don't have that midah of chutzpah. Gomle Chasodim, we like doing chesed for people. That's part and parcel. Where's it come? Because our avos who perfected these midos made it genetically, that comes part and parcel to the point where the Gemara says in Kedushin, the Gemara brings down a discussion that there was a person that had a tremendous amount of chutzpah, a tremendous amount of audacity, and the Talmud mentions that one of the rabbis said, "Mind the chutz of kula hai." Someone that has that level of chutzpah to sign mamzerhu. There's something defective with his lineage, because a Jew, that's not why Jews behave. And not Jews with pure lineage. Jew doesn't have that. So you see there is that. So the one of the focuses that we have to look at when we learn these parshios, the story of Avram Avinu, it's not a history book. It's not nice stories. It's refinement of character. Rashi asked the question, why does the Torah start here? The Torah should have started Chodesh HaZelachem, when we get the first mitzvah, Matan Torah, right? Are we starting back in Bereshis? So Rashi says, okay, it's important to start in Bereshis. We have to know that God in charge of the world, and He says Eretz Yisrael is going to be ours. Means that's. But why do we need all the stories? Because that makes up the nature and refinement of who we are as a people, who we are as a nation. So focusing on these midot, focusing on these characteristics that are being presented in Sefer HaYashar, in the book of Bereshis, gives us insight in how we're supposed to be able to do certain things. We are introduced in this week's Parsha to the characteristic that embodies what Avram Avinu was all about. Right? What is the nature and that's the lifeblood, that's the midah that was the quintessential midah of Avram Avinu, right, is what? Chesed. Right? And we see the act of Chesed. What's the act of Chesed in this week's Parsha? Achnasas Orchim. Achnasas Orchim is the act of Chesed of Avram Avinu. So you would expect, now, I'm sure this is not the only time that Avram Avinu did Chesed, and it's not the only time that Achnasas Orchim. So you would expect that if the Torah is going to showcase this as being the case where we see Avram Avinu doing Achnasas Orchim, then this must be the case we need to learn from. This is it being done in its most pristine state. This is the way to do Achnasas Orchim. There's no other way. Because this is the example the Torah uses. We don't see other examples. We see this example means this is the way the Torah wants you to relate to the mitzvah of Achnasas Orchim. So the first question we have to ask, well, why now? Why now are we being introduced to this midah that quantifies and qualifies the mahus, the essence of what Avram Avinu is? Titein chesed la'Avraham, the Pasuk says, the Navi says that chesed. Why now?
Isn't that chutzpah when he's talking to Hashem and telling him?
Well, that's good. Let's not jump ahead of ourselves. Let's just jump. Yeah. It's a jump ahead. That's jumping ahead. All right, we're not saying Jews can't have chutzpah, but I don't think that's a chutzpah. But it's, you know what I'm saying. But yeah. All right, we'll see. But the Chachamim, the Gemara asked that question. Right? But so that's, I think, question number one. Why is this the location of when that's being expressed? It's very interesting also is that the pasuk begins, Vayeira elav Hashem be'elonei mamre v'hu yoshev pesach ha'oel k'chom hayom. Take a look. I got the psukim with you, did a little textualing. It says that Hashem appeared to him in the plains of Mamre, and he was sitting at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. So Vayeira elav, Rashi brings down the Medrash, the Gemara in Sota right away. Hashem appeared to him. Why? Levaker asachola. Hashem wanted to Bikur Cholim. Now, we all remember back in the day when we were in 4th grade or 5th grade, right? If we had the blessing of being able to be in a Jewish day school, they would have told us the reason why. How do the rabbis know that it was Bikur Cholim? How do we even know anything was wrong with Avram, that Hashem had to come visit him? Because if you look at the verse before, right, the psukim before, is when Avram at the age of 98, Avram ben Tishim v'teisha shana behimolav sar oloso, he was circumcised, right? So although it's not a history book, and although there doesn't have to be a chronological order, but logic dictates that if things are put in a certain way, there is a connection and there is an order. So the way we were always taught as kids, so Avram just had bris milah. Hashem comes to visit him. Why does Hashem come to visit him? Because it was the 3rd day from the bris milah, which is the most painful day. Hashem is coming to visit him. That is the way that it was taught to us, right? There are other ways you can also see, I think, a little more sophisticated, how we know that it was for Bikur Cholim, because the question really has to be asked as well. There are other things that Hashem is going to discuss with him. Hashem has to let him know that Sarah is going to have a child. Hashem has to know that he's going to destroy Sodom. Amachasani ma'avram. Right? There are other things that are being informed. So how do you know that it's specifically coming to do Bikur Cholim for Avram Avinu? If you look at the wording, it's interesting that it writes, Vayeira elav Hashem belonei mamre. It's a little bit not the norm to way to write it. What you should have written is, Vayeira Hashem elav. The subject, Avram, should be written, Hashem appeared to Avram, not Hashem appeared to him. So he appeared to him. Who appeared? Hashem appeared. It's not the. It's a little bit of a disjointed way of writing. So Chazal understand that. That's how they know it's Bikur Cholim. That the main purpose of coming is not because what Hashem wants to tell Avram. He's coming Elav. He's coming for Avram's purposes. And in fact, it doesn't even mention Avram's name. Why doesn't it mention Avram's name? Because it's counting on you knowing that who's the subject matter here. Whoever was mentioned in the verses before. Well, who was Avram ben Tishim v'Teishana? So you know that it's talking about connected to Avram being the subject of the bris milah in the parsha before. So that's us. It's a little bit more of a sophisticated understanding how we know that specifically for Avram's purposes. Right? Which also then answers what Ruth said. Right? Chazal tell us is that you see that it is greater to do achnasus orchim than even to have communion with Hashem. Because Avram gets up and he leaves Hashem to go and be machnis ora, go and bring in the, right? So that's a greater mitzvah. How could it be anything greater than having communion with Hashem? All we want is to be close with Hashem. But if you understand that Hashem was here for Avram, the main purpose he was for Avram, to make Avram feel good. So Avram said, you know what's going to really make me feel good? What really makes me feel good is to do the mitzvah of achnosas orchim. So that you can do. If it's for the sake of Avram, you can do it. If it's Hashem, I have something to tell you. What do you mean you're running off to do? I'm here for a message. I've got something. No, because you're not here for you. You're here for me. You're here for me. Then do what's good for me. For me, I want to go do achnosas orchim. Right? So Rashi brings down, let's keep going. So let's go to the psukim here. Let's take a look at this mitzvah of Hachnos Orchim. Vayeira alav Hashem b'loina mamre v'hu yoshev pesach ha'ohel. Hashem appeared before Avram at the plains of Mamre, and he was sitting at the entrance of the tent. Rashi says, why was he sitting at the entrance of the tent? Because liros im yesh over v'shav. He wanted to see if people go. He's sitting there because should be in bed. Well, he wants to do the mitzvah of Hachnosas Orch, and it's Gechor Mayom. This was a very, very hot day. In fact, why was it Gechor Mayom? So Rashi says, Hotzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu Chama min Artika. Hashem took the sun out of its pouch, means he made it much hotter. Shelo latricho be'orchim, that there shouldn't be guests, because he didn't want him to have to deal with Hashem. No, he'd go be machlis or I want you to get healed. But it had the opposite effect. Avram felt worse. So Hashem, fine. You know what? Avram felt worse. You know what? No one's going to come out in this heat of the day. You know who's going to come out? The malachim. I'll send 3 malachim dressed up as people, so that Avram can feel better by doing the mitzvah of Hachnasas Orcha. Right? So we see what's going on here. So we see over here, one, we see Avram's Mesirut Nefesh to the mitzvah of Hachnasas Orcha. Right? He's healing. He's in pain. It's hot outside. Right? Yet Avram is waiting by the entrance to the mitzvahs of Hachnasas Orchim. Okay, that shows it. That we understand now. That's showcasing the midah of Avram, because he is doing mitzvah Hachnasas Orchim with Mesirut Nefesh. He's showing how much he's willing to give himself over for this particular mitzvah. Great. Let's keep going. Vayisa Einav, he raises his eyes. Vayar, and he sees the Hinei Shlosha Anoshim, who are these 3 people, who are angels dressed as men. Nitzavim Alav, they're standing beside him. Vayaratz Yikrosam, and he ran to them in a sickly state. He's running to them. Vipesach from the entrance of his gate. Vayishtachu Arza, and he bows himself to the ground. There's a 90-year-old man, just had bris milah, but he's doing the mitzvah of Hachnasas Orchim. Vayomer, there's different understandings of this Adonai. Let's go, it's my masters. He's referring to the angels. Some say it's going on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he told Hashem, you know what, please wait for me while I do this, I'll come back. Right? But the simple pshat is, it's talking about lords with not a capital Lord, but it's talking about the masters. He's referring to the angels. If I have found favor in your eyes, please allow me to bring you into my home, and don't go by. Don't go. Yukach na me'at mayim. Listen to the wording here. Let a little bit of water be taken. V'rachtu raglechem, and you should wash your feet. V'shanotach ha'za'etz, and you have a tree here. There's shade. Take a little bit of shade in. Va'ekcha pas lechem, and I'll get a little bit of bread for you. V'sadu lipchem, so you can satiate your hearts. Achar, afterwards tavoru, then you can go by. Because this must be the reason you passed by, so that I should be able to entertain you and let you come. You know what? Fine. Go ahead and do it. Solus, he goes to Sarah's tent. He says, quickly make 3 sa' of meal and fine flour, lushi, bake them, knead them, and vasu ogos, make cakes. The Ela Bakar Ratz Avram, and then Avram had run to the cattle. Vayikach ben Bakar Rach Vatov, he took calf, young and tender. Vayitil Anar Veimar Alas is also, he slaughtered 3 calves, so each one could get a tongue. He wanted each one a tongue there. Okay, nice tongue sandwich with the bread. Fine. Vayichach chema v'chalav, he took cream and milk. There's discussion here, meat and milk. It's not for now. Oben abakar, and took the kasher asa, vayitem ifneim, v'umad alehem tachas ha'eit vayachelu. And he stood by them, and they ate. Very nice. Mitzvah Hachnasas Orchim. A little bit of shade, a little bit of water. He gives him a little bit more. He never said anything about giving him a deli sandwich. But you know what? The Gemara says, you see that tzaddikim, they're omrim ma'at v'osim harbe. They say a little bit, and they do a lot. The problem is, this is not the only mitzvah of Hachnasas Orchim in this week's Parsha. There is another example of Hachnasas Orchim in this week's Parsha. That's going to be the Hachnasas Orchim of Avram's nephew Lot. Now, we started off today's shir by saying that the only way we can understand if Avram has done Hachnas Orchim thousands of times, why are we picking this particular case? Because this showcases how to do Hachnas Orchim. This is the midah, the essence of what Avram stands for. So we have to ask ourselves, Lot is not one of our avos. What is the purpose that we need to have an example of how Lot is doing Hachnasas Orchim? So the only answer you could say is because maybe the Torah wants you to contrast and compare. This is how you do it. This is not how you do it. The problem is, if you take a look at the second sheet, when we go through the Hachnasas Orchim of Lot, in fact, it's going to appear at face value, superficially at least, that the way Lot is doing Hachnasas Orchim surpasses and is even greater than the way Avram Avinu does it. Which we're not even going to for a moment think that means what Lot did it great. It was a greater Baal Chesed than Avram. Of course not, right? Of course not. Situationally, but then why show a case? Why showcase a case that seems to overshadow what Avram is doing? The whole purpose is to learn from Avram. Let's read the case of Lot. Vayavo shnei hamalachim Sodoma. The two angels came to Sodom. Remember, Lot had picked to go to the direction of Sodom to separate from the contention between him and his shepherds and Avram's shepherds. So he left, and he kept getting closer and closer. The Yetzer Hara, a little bit at a time. Finally, finds himself smack in the middle of Sodom. Actually, he became part of a judge in Sodom. He was he's there. Two of the angels are coming. Why did three come to Avram? Because each angel had a mission. Okay? The mission of one of the angels was to tell Avram that Sarah is going to have a child. He did his job. He leaves. There are two angels left. They still have to do the mission. One is to destroy Sodom. The other one is to save Lot. According to some of the Foreshadowing, the one that saved Lot is also the one that healed Avram, because Lot is being saved in the merit of Avram. It's all part of making Avraham feel better. So it's really the same mission, saving Avram, healing Avram and saving Lot. So that's why that's the one that goes along. Okay, there's different commentaries. We have to find what the two are doing and why the one left. Each one had his mission, fine. So these two angels are coming to Sodom. Now it's ba'erev, it's towards evening. V'lot yoshe b'shar Sodom. Lot is sitting at the gates of Sodom. Again, why is he waiting at the gates of Sodom? Because he too wants to do the mitzvah of Hachnasas Orchim. Now let's just go apples to apples. Avram is sitting at the entrance to his tent. Lot is sitting at the end of the city. Check one for Lot. Avram is being Moser Nefesh. Avram is he's in pain, he's just had Milah. That's a huge Mesiras Nefesh. You know what happens to somebody that gets caught in Sodom doing Hachnasas Orchim? Mm-hmm. It's a capital offense. It is a capital offense. Lot had a daughter that was caught helping a poor person. Rashi brings down that Hashem heard Tza'akas Dome, the cries of Sodom, that they covered her in honey and they left her on a rooftop naked to be stung to death by bees. That's what happens in Sodom. Look at the Mesiras Nefesh that Lot is having for the mitzvah of Hachnasas Orchim. Again, we do not for a moment think that Lot is greater than Avram Avinu. But why are we showcasing a case when you compare what Avram is doing to what Lot is doing, that Lot seems to be doing more? All right, let's keep going. Vayakam lekrosam, he got up towards them. Again, remember, Lot grew up with Avram, so he learned from Avram. Right? So he knows that these are what you said to do. Same thing. Ishtacha apayim arza. He prostrated with himself, with his face to the ground. Vayomer, hinei na Adonai. Behold now, my masters. Suru na el beis avdechem. I would like you to turn to your servant's house. Velinu, and I'd like you to spend the night, sleep overnight. V'rachatzu raglechem, and I want you to wash your feet. V'ishkamtem, and then you can get up early. V'alachtem ledarkechem, and you can go on your way. And you know what they respond? Vayomru, and they say to him, Lo, no. So it's one thing to say no, but look what they say. Ki barachov nalim, would rather sleep in the street. So the Mishnah better says, you see, Masarvin Legodo. When a great person asks you something, you don't say no. When a small person asks you, you can say no. It's one thing to turn him down, but this is a shtick of chutzpah. Not only they're saying, okay, we don't want to do it. Why do they have to say we'd rather sleep in the street? That's quite a chutzpah to answer. Kira would rather sleep in the street. That's almost like like they were upset about something almost. Would rather sleep. It's like, why are they responding in such a way? But going back to our initial comparison, Avram offers them, come take a little water and sit under a tree. What is Lot offering them? Spend the night. Now you could argue, well, it was nighttime, that was in the daytime. It's true, maybe. But the Torah is contrasting. The Torah is giving us examples of what Avram did and what Lot did. And again, what Lot does seems to far supersede what Avram is doing. Vayiftzar bam ma'od, and he urges them strongly. Vayasuru elav, and they turn to him. They turn to him. Vayavo el beiso, and they come into his house. Vayas lehem mishteh. Doesn't say he made a little meal. Avram said, you know what? Take a little bit, morsel of bread and satisfy your hearts. What does Lot do? Mishteh. This is a 5-course meal. This is the finery. Mishteh has got the china is out, the glass goblet. He's putting out the scotch. I mean, we're talking about a serious party here. A mishteh. Umatzos, and he baked from the cakes. Again, it was Pesach time. Afa, he baked, vayochelu, and they ate. It's interesting. Here it says he baked them. There it says he asked Sarah to do it. So again, just seems like he is going overboard for this mitzvah, and it seems to be a lot more. So we're asking why the comparisons. By the way, when they were preparing the meal for these guests, they ran out of an ingredient. What did they run out of? Salt. And the wife of Lot went and tipped off the neighbors purposely that we have guests, knowing that you're not allowed to have guests. And therefore, when she got punished, turned around, she turned into a pillar of salt. Okay. So, Terem Yishkavu, they had just not yet laid down. Anshe Ha'ir, and the people of the city, Anshe Sdom, the people of Sdom, Nisabu al Habayis, surrounded the house. Minar Vad Zaken, was everybody included. There was no ratings here. All children, all the youngsters to the elderly. Kol ha'am, the entire nation, Mikatze, from every end of the city. Vayikru el Lot, and they called out to Lot. Vayomer lo, and they said to him, Ayeh ha'anashim asher bo elecha halayla. Where are those people that have come to you tonight? We know you have them. Hotziem eleinu v'neda osam. Bring them out to us. So v'neda, that we should know them. We should know them. When the Torah uses lashon yediyah, sometimes it means intimate. We want to be intimate with them, right? We're going to give them a punishment. We're going to rape them, basically. That's actually the expression to sodomize somebody. It's an expression comes from Zdom. That's from here. It's from the story. Okay, we're going to bring them out. Now, Lot's response over here is like unbelievable. Vayetze alehem Lot. Lot went out to them, a pescha, to the entrance. Hadela sagan acharav, so no one should sneak in. He shuts the door. Vayomar, and he says to them, Al no achai tareyu. Please don't act in an evil way. I'm worried about you. Don't act in an immoral way, in an evil way. Hine nali shtei vanos. I have 2 good daughters. Asher lo yodu ish, that have never had lain with a man. Otzi no eshen alechem. Let me bring them to you. V'osulahem katov beinechem. Do what you want to them. Rak la'anoshim ha'el al tasu davar, but to these men don't do anything, ki al kein bo b'tzel karosi, because they're here under the protection of my roof. I don't want you to do anything bad to these people. Don't act in an evil way. Take my daughters. What's going on here? How is that response? Al kein bo b'tzel karosi, they've come to the decision. So you need to understand, we're not dealing with somebody that is mentally deranged, disturbed. So how's that a response? Okay, and they didn't agree, and then the Malachim came out, but made everyone blind, all right, and saved Lot. So let's understand what's going on here. We're asking, why is it located specifically here, this Chesed over here? Also, we're trying to figure out, if you're showcasing Avram, why you're overshadowing him with what's happening with Lot, and then Lot takes it to such an extreme that he's willing to give his daughters instead of... What's the pathology there that we can understand that? The other interesting thing is a side point. Rashi points out that Lot told them to wash their feet after they came into the house. Right. By Avram, he didn't say come into the house and wash your feet. He told them to wash their feet outside. So Rashi says because they used to worship the dust, and Avram did not want to bring Avodah Zarah, he had the sensitivity not to bring in the house, yet Lot did not have that sensitivity. So I heard from my Rosh Hashiva a beautiful question. He says, if Lot is mimicking everything he saw by Abraham, right? Where did he learn how to do any of these things? So then, why didn't he copy him and have them wash their feet outside? If he's copying everything that he saw over there, then why isn't he copying that? That he missed. He wasn't paying attention that day. Like, how come that he's not copying? So he says, Abraham had that sensitivity about Avodah Zarah, Lot did not. Why? We'll get to that. Okay, let's begin answering with defining what true chesed is first, and then we'll go back and answer the questions. The Torah, David HaMelech in Tehillim says, Olam chesed yiboneh, that when God created the world, He created with chesed. God's act of creation was the ultimate act of chesed. So you go back to the creation of the world, you learn how to do chesed. How did God do chesed? Right. Who is the recipient of God's chesed? When He created the world, we are. So the Medrash says like this. Listen to the Medrash. The Medrash says, why is it that man was created last from all of the creatures? So the Medrash gives two answers. One says that a man should know, you think you're going to get arrogant, you're going to become a Baal Gaiva. Even the flea, the insignificant flea, was created before you were. Just remember. That's one answer that's given. But there's another answer that's given, a very interesting answer. Says, if you had God created man first, and then God says, okay, this is your light, this is your water, this is your food, and is showing him what everything he's doing for man, that would be a very, very uncomfortable situation. Because nobody wants to be in a situation where it keeps putting in his face, I'm doing this for you, and I'm doing this for you, and I'm doing this for you, and I'm doing this for you. God saved man that embarrassment. You know how did He save that embarrassment? Because it was all there already. Now, obviously, in man's mind, he knows how did it get there. It got there because God put it there. But it's still, you don't have that embarrassment. You don't have that imposition. You don't feel that level of being uncomfortable and being beholden when it's not being put in your face what I'm doing for you. And therefore, to save man that embarrassment and that uncomfortability, God created man at the end and did not create man at the beginning. A very interesting psychological understanding here. But from there we understand that the whole idea of chesed, when you do chesed, you have to do it in a way that is less imposing upon the person. What I mean by that you downplay, you understate the amount of what you're doing for the person, so he feels comfortable. He doesn't have a problem taking it from you because he won't feel embarrassment in terms of doing it. That's the whole way that a person has to understand. That's what we learn out that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how God did chesed for man. There is a pasuk in Vayikra, in Acharei Mos. It says that one of the consanguineous relations, one of the prohibited relationships, is having a relationship with incest with a sister. Having relations with a sister it's prohibited, and the pasuk says ki chesed hu, because it is a chesed. So Rashi has, what do you mean it's a chesed? So Rashi, no, chesed here is being used in its Aramaic form. There's some Aramaic words in the Torah. Chesed here is not the Hebrew form of the word, it's the Aramaic form. And in Aramaic, chesed is embarrassment. That it's an embarrassment. So it's very difficult to understand. How could it be that there is a relationship between Aramaic and Hebrew. So how could chesed is not as a good thing, and embarrassment, that's a bad thing. So how could the same word chesed mean embarrassment? It's just a question from the way you look at the perspective. The giver, when he does it, it's a good thing. The one who receives it, chesed is an embarrassment. So chesed means that. But so the way we have to do achnasas orchim is we have to limit the embarrassment the person feels. Now that's not an easy thing to do, because that's where we go wrong. Most of us, when we do achnasas orchim, we do chesed, we try to do it in the most magnanimous way possible, because the more we feel we're doing for someone, the better we feel about it. The more we feel we're doing, the more magnanimous we feel, the better we feel about it. So now you have, but it's in the inverse to that is, the more we feel and state and make it seem like we're doing for you, the more uncomfortable you're going to get. But the problem is, but if I make it as if I'm not doing a lot for you, then I don't feel good, because I don't feel that magnanimity of doing something. But that's what chesed is. Chesed is, we learn from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is understating what I'm doing, whereby I'm focusing on what is it that you need. It's about what you need, not what it makes me feel. Unfortunately, most of us do chesed about what it makes us feel, not taking into account the sensitivities and the needs of the recipient. Now we go back to the story of Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu is showing us the way you're supposed to do chesed. You know what you're supposed to do chesed? Yukach na ma'at ma'at. Let a little bit of water be taken. A little bit of shade under the tree. A little bread to make you feel better. Take a rest. These are all things, you do it in a way, it's there anyway. I'm not really doing much for you. He's making them feel comfortable. You make them feel comfortable, they say yes. Comes Lot. I want to open my home. You should sleep overnight. I'm going to do a mishteh. I'm pulling out the china. We're going to have the best scotch. We're going to make this. There's going to be a party. You know what they answer him? We'd rather sleep in the street. You're making us feel uncomfortable. I don't want to be anyone's chesed case. I don't want to be your vehicle to make you feel magnanimous. It's all about him. It's all about the feelings he gets from doing it. Yes, he's doing a lot, but that doesn't make it a greater mitzvah of chesed. That's exactly what the Torah is comparing. That the more he's doing, he's actually doing less, because he's doing it about what makes him feel good. He's not doing it about what they need and what they feel, and therefore they actually turn him down. Because it's not about, you want to make a party, but understate it, don't overstate it. And you see that how warped Lot's chesed is. It's all about his magnanimity, what makes him feel good. So when he's offered his protection for them, what is he even willing to do? Take my daughters. Because it's about what makes him feel. Al Kain Bo V'Tzel Karossi. I have given them protection. How can you take them? Because it's about what he feels. You almost say, like they say by the Bedouins, right? The Bedouins are very, very makbid and achnasas orchim, but don't turn your back on them. They get insulted if you won't sit down and have a coffee and have it, but that they say, but don't turn your back, because if it's about you, it's not about the recipient. So then, you see sometimes the people will give out the most unbelievable chesed. People do the most unbelievable chesed. They do the most unbelievable hachnasas orchim. But it's not necessarily about the recipient. It's about the ones that are doing it, and that's self-serving, and that's exactly what the Torah is contrasting. So you know what? Yes, he's giving them a deli sandwich. And he's offering them a meal, but his act of chesed is a true act of chesed, whereas Lot's, it's self-serving, it's not about him. Right? Why is this the place right now? So I heard this from my Rosh Hashiva, most unbelievable voice. The Rambam brings down, the Sefer Chinuch brings down, is the mitzvah of bris milah that we do is to make to limit a person's pursuit of gratification. That the mitzvah of bris milah, when it's wounding the limb, that is where a person pursues for self-gratification, it's to cause weakness in that limb. That's what the chinuch says, is to create that. Is that a person should be able to think outside of himself. A person should not just focus on what he wants and what he needs. The mitzvah that teaches you that is the mitzvah of milah. It's not all about me. It's not about just gratifying myself and what I need. Right? Avram Avinu's mitzvah of Chesed is being showcased after he has the mitzvah of milah. Because now is the first time he's been able to reach that level of sensitivity that he's completely focused on what somebody else needs and not what he needs for himself. And therefore this is the case where we see that. Lot wasn't there for the bris milah. He already had left. So he wasn't there. I don't know if Ammon and Moab circumcised themselves. So therefore, he's still doing it as the pre-bris milah way of doing it. The pre-bris milah way of doing it, that's still focusing on gratification, still focusing on self. And also, milah is tied to avodah zarah. As Brit Chayun Sorah, it says by Levi, that all the 40 years, they did bris milah when everyone else wasn't doing it, and they also didn't do the egel hazah. Lot, now, Avram had the sensitivity, wash your feet outside. He's got that sensitivity to avodah zarah. Lot did not have the bris milah. He wasn't there. He does not have that sensitivity. Therefore, he doesn't have a problem with them washing their feet inside. So this is being showcased now because it's after the mitzvah of bris milah, which is the mitzvah that teaches us to think outside ourselves, not focus on ourselves, because that's how you can do true chesed, when the focus is only what the person needs, not on what it gives me and the pleasure and the gratification I get. It's not about my magnanimity, it's on making that person feel comfortable. It's not the amount, but it is the focus on making it seem almost, and it's a hard thing to do, because the more I downplay what I'm doing, the less he might appreciate. Our job, by the way, when people do chesed for us, is not to downplay what they're doing. The recipient, from the recipient's perspective, is to overstate what's being done for him. Right? And there's that opposite thing. It's almost it's a relationship that almost is the inverse. If you make, you see this very often with our children. You see this often with a person, a father-in-law puts a child in business. The more the person says, "I'm doing for you," the less the person wants to acknowledge what he's done for you. The less you state what you're doing for the person, then you give him the ability to accept and appreciate and overstate what's being done for them. And that's the same thing with chesed. As guests, we have to overstate what's being done. But if he keeps telling you I'm doing it for you, you're not going to feel that way. So therefore, that's the relationship that we have. Anyway, so this is the quintessential way of doing chesed, something for us to work on.